I'm joined on the stage by Fred and Cindy Warmbier, and they're here because of their son, Otto. I want to say a few words about Otto, and then we'll ask some questions and have a discussion with Fred and Cindy. Otto Warmbier was a University of Virginia student when he was detained in Pyongyang airport on the final day of a 5-day tour of North Korea in January 2016. He was accused of sneaking onto a restricted floor of his hotel and attempting to steal a political poster. He was sentenced to 15 years hard labor. In total, Otto Warmbier spent 17 months in North Korea before being released. He was taken by a medical aircraft to the United States. After his arrival, doctors said his condition was severe and that he had suffered extensive loss of tissue in all regions of his brain. 4 days after that, he was gone. He had been tortured, injured, murdered by the regime. And Fred and Cindy are here. They're still grieving. But I want to ask them, Fred, Cindy, you haven't done anything really like this. Why did you decide to come to the Geneva Summit?
Thank you for having us here. You had sent an invitation, and we heard good things about you and your organization. And so it was as simple as that. And it's hard to hear that story about Otto. And Cindy and I try to stay forward-looking with this, but it's important to know, how did Otto end up in North Korea, and how did we end up here? We raised Otto to be curious and have a good hard work ethic, and also to have a sense of humor. And he had all those, and he was a great son. And you wouldn't tell Otto no, because he never did anything to deserve that. And so this opportunity for the Geneva Summit is kind of the same thing. We taught him to be curious. We taught him to work hard. We're curious, and we've seen so many amazing things here that it just it's crazy to think of some of the political situations that we've just listened to. Our problems seem small by comparison.
No, they don't. No, they don't. When I hear about these terrible regimes, when I hear about these regimes, it might be me. I don't know. Okay. Otto never got to hear our voice. He never got to talk to an American. He never got a trial where he was represented. The tour group left him there. He was basically abandoned, a 21-year-old college kid. And the fear he had to feel haunts me. And our ability to do nothing as an American citizen shocked me. And Otto has put a face on the North Korean crisis that supposedly will shed light on the situation there. But out of all the regimes, I don't think there's a worse one around.
Cindy, we talked about the terrible things. I'd like to hear the good things. The world sees the headlines. The world doesn't necessarily know who Otto was. I saw a video on the internet which was very powerful of him speaking salutatorian. Is that the term? Does that mean like a valedictorian address? He was a graduating class? Number two, okay. But I saw him a bit, and he's a handsome, lively, funny, witty young man. Tell us about Otto. Tell us about your son.
Sure. Otto had as a lot of these people that get detained. He had a high intelligence, and he had a charisma, and he was naturally, don't push. Okay. He was naturally curious because he had a somewhat privileged life. He had been loved. He had excelled in everything he'd done. So there's something intriguing about seeing a culture that was so different when you live free your whole life and loved. So I think he was curious about people that didn't have the rights he had. And we always knew Otto would someday be famous. He was born smart.
So to talk about our situation in North Korea, we have to go to South Korea because we can't go to North Korea. So in the last month, we were at the State of the Union and honored by the president, which was great. Didn't expect any of this. And then we had planned to go to the Olympics, and we were also a guest of the vice president. So it's important. This was really tough for us, and we took our daughter Greta there. And so I'm going to read to you a little bit of the summary of what it felt like when we went to South Korea and our thoughts as we did this. When we read that North Korea would be sending athletes and dancers to the Olympics in South Korea, we felt compelled to be there to represent Otto. We went with misgivings and anxiety over being in a country that welcomed Otto's murderers. After spending time in South Korea, even though there was a huge language barrier, we felt comfortable, safe, and welcomed. And that was really good for us to experience that. This is the closest we're going to be to where our son Otto was the son we left at the airport in Cincinnati on his way to visit North Korea.
You mentioned that you were in South Korea and you were there at the Olympics. Tell me a little bit about the country. What kind of country did you find in South Korea? What was your impression?
Well, like Fred had mentioned, you know, I go to South Korea and I have a lot of mixed feelings. You know, in my heart, I didn't want to like the country. We wanted to go to the DMZ. We wanted to confront North Korea. And what happened was the South Korean country was warm, welcoming, clean, friendly, and we ended up having a great time being a part of this culture that I wanted not to like. And so we ended up not feeling the need to go to the DMZ or to even run into the participating North Koreans at the Olympics. So we ended up, it was healing for us. And
I think the highlight, or one of the highlights for the trip for me, was I was able to meet and shake hands with President Moon. And 3 days after Otto passed away, we received a condolence letter from President Moon. And it was very kind, and it meant a lot to our family. So it was nice to meet him and thank him for that.
And you were at the Olympics. You mentioned the fact that the dictator's sister was there and that there was media coverage that did not reflect what that country was. Tell me generally about the Olympics. What was it? I understand you also met some people. You met a defector that you had also met at the State of the Union, someone, the amputee.
Yeah, we did. We met more defectors, and again, I think the total experience in South Korea was being in this amazing country, this growing, developing country, and with people that are nurtured and they have food and they have medicine. And so that was our that was one of our experiences. We met with defectors, and again, that's tough when you meet a woman who's been in prison for 28 years, and you ask her, what can you do? What can we do to help? And this is how moms feel. She said, we want you to kill Kim. And that was just a real powerful, it was honest, and I could look, and she had a hardened look on her face, and it was sad, but that's the way she felt. So we had those experiences as well at the Olympics. And then, but the spirit of the Olympics was, it was an amazing feeling to be part of that. And then that's what Cindy said, we were able to let go, enjoy South Korea, enjoy the people of South Korea, the system of South Korea, the progress that they have. And that was great for us to experience that. And the spirit of the Olympics is kind of like the spirit that we feel here at the Geneva summit. And that's it's a go for it. It's a go big, feels right, let's do it. And that's the spirit of Otto. The spirit of Otto was, and we always encouraged him to go for it. I'm sorry he went to North Korea. I'm not sorry I'm here. So that was the spirit that we felt, and I think the spirit that is felt here.
Thank you. Cindy, I saw that Otto's younger brother said it was hard being Otto's younger brother. Tell me what he meant by that.
You know, when you lose a kid, it's always hard, but when you lose a kid like Otto,
So I think it was just typical sibling rivalry. And
No, but I saw that he had said that he was so perfect in so many ways. That's what I saw.
But he wasn't. He was a great kid, but he was just a kid. And I think what makes this so compelling to the world is that the Kim family, they chose to do this. They used Otto as a pawn and a hostage, and they did this in front of the world. It was on TV to show everyone. They show them pushing him, and this is their message, that if they'll do this to Otto, imagine what they'll do to their citizens. Imagine what they intend to do to the rest of the world. They held our family hostage for a year and a half, and this is exactly what they're doing to the international community right now. And it was tragic being in South Korea and talking to the South Koreans, and in the back of their mind, the fear that they would talk about of North Korea. What if they do this? What if they do that? And it's tragic. They don't deserve this respect. They didn't deserve to be in the same room as Otto.
And Fred, we had a private meeting with diplomats, and we won't say what they said or anything, but you asked a question, which I think is relevant to Geneva and to the United Nations, in that the United Nations, every country is the same, and every country gets invited to all meetings, and when they have rotations, sadly it happened a few years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, North Korea sits on the disarmament committee, and they go by rotation, and 1 month North Korea was the chair, and no one thought that was a problem because it's a rotation, and even if they're a bad country, well, it's a rotation. What are your thoughts about North Korea being treated like any other country?
So again, we're not political, it's personal. And so North Korea told Cindy and I, that Otto is a prisoner of war and a war criminal. And I asked the folks at the conference yesterday, why aren't they held to account for saying these things? We had one letter written by the Swedish ambassador in 18 months. So that was it as far as communication, and yet they're not held accountable. So that was stunning to us to say, what do you mean by war criminal? What do you mean by prisoner of war? So therefore, if he's a prisoner of war, why can't we write him letters? They're not accountable for these.
Under the Geneva Conventions, just up the street, the Red Cross implements that.
It's my understanding, but they're not held accountable to this.
Well, I want to ask you where you come here. You're speaking out. What is your spirit as you go forward? As you come here at the summit, talked about going big. Maybe some final words that you want to share. What your thoughts are going forward on how you want to move forward.
Sure. Cindy, do you have anything?
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. You know, living in my little vacuum, I wasn't, I mean, you read things, but you're not aware of all the individual pains out there and the countries that are invoking these on citizens. And, you know, as many problems as the U.S. has, I am sure glad to be a U.S. citizen. And I think I'm leaving with that.
And I would say, we don't have a plan. We buried our son 8 months ago. It was tragic. We were led to believe he was in perfect health up until 2 weeks before he came home. We're still waking up and we're still recovering. But I will say, I believe the world is mostly a good place. It's not always. And we started this experience as happy and positive people, and we're proud of our son. We're also proud of our other 2 children. And we intend to move forward in the world as positive people. And if we can make a change with Otto's death, that would be great. Let's just think about the comparisons. South Korea is an advancing, contributing country in the world. They donate money to charitable causes. They're an amazing country. Think of that is the example of South Korea is what the North Korean people are capable of. It'd be nice to experience that in our lifetime.
Fred, I think that's a good way to leave it. All of us pay tribute to the memory of Otto, and we salute you for being here and speaking out. I think that's your way of paying tribute to his memory, and to see if there's a way that you can make some kind of a difference in the world, which is what we're trying to do here in everything that we're doing, and that's why everyone is here today. So I know it was very difficult for you to come here. It wasn't an easy decision. I thank you for making the trip, and I'm glad to have met you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,